It's kind of amazing when you think about it. Some really huge success stories, right? Businesses like FedEx, Microsoft, even Coors, they actually kicked off during major economic downturns.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, how do some people manage not just to survive tough times, but actually, like, thrive in them?
Exactly. And that's why, for this deep dive, you brought up a great source. Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way. Holiday's got this interesting background advising people in media, strategy, gives him a very real-world take.
And the book itself, it's structured around these three core pillars: perception, action, and will. We're going to dig into that first one today, perception.
Right. Because Holiday isn't just giving feel-good advice. He's really tapping into Stoic philosophy.
Which offers a very grounded, practical framework for dealing with the challenges we all face. Inevitably, he's looking at how real people through history actually responded to adversity. It's not just theory.
Spot on.
Yeah.
And that's our goal today for you, the learner. We want to pull out those concrete things, those actionable insights, the mental shifts from this book. Stuff you can start using right away to change how you see and handle your own obstacles.
We're looking for those aha moments, right? The ones that spark real growth, real achievement, but without getting bogged down in, just abstract concepts.
Definitely. So let's dive right into that first big area, perception.
Okay. So at its core, the book argues perception is just how we interpret stuff that happens to us. Simple as that, almost.
But that's where the power lies, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because that interpretation, it's not fixed. It's a choice we make. And the book says it right at the start of that section. Perception is the interpretation of events that can either empower or weaken us.
So the event itself is neutral until we put our spin on it.
Pretty much. Until we layer our judgment, our reaction, our story onto it.
And the example of John D. Rockefeller is just perfect here, right? Building this massive empire in like the craziest, most unstable industry, oil.
Yeah. When the market went wild and everyone else was panicking, selling off.
Rockefeller apparently stayed completely calm. He saw those downturns not as disaster.
No, he saw them as opportunities, chances to buy up competitors, streamline things, basically make his position even stronger.
It really shows the power of that disciplined mind, doesn't it? Not just reacting emotionally with the crowd.
And that ability he had to sort of look past the immediate chaos and see the bigger picture, the underlying dynamics that connects straight back to those Stoic ideas.
Oh, yeah.
It's about training ourselves to see things clearly, without our feelings or what everyone else is yelling about, distorting the view. His focus was on rational assessment, not fear. That was key.
So how do we actually do that? How do we cultivate that kind of perception, make that shift?
Well, the book lays out some key things to focus on. Things like developing objectivity, managing our emotions.
Right.
Actively looking for the positive, staying calm, trying to ignore distractions, keeping perspective.
Focusing on the present and what's actually in our control. It sounds like a lot, maybe.
It does, but it boils down to conscious effort, practice. It's a skill.
And it makes you think, doesn't it? Like for you listening, the learner, think about a recent challenge you faced. How did your take on it, your perception, shape how you reacted?
Yeah, were you focused on what you could actually do or just getting tangled up in the emotional fallout? Good question to chew on.
Definitely. Okay, so building on this idea that our interpretations are so powerful, the next part of the book is about really recognizing and claiming that power, the control we have over perception.
And the story of Reuben Hurricane Carter here is just, wow, incredibly powerful.
Unbelievable. His ability to hold on to his inner freedom, his attitude, his beliefs, how he chose to respond even while unjustly locked up for years.
Exactly. He lost his physical freedom, totally. But he refused, absolutely refused, to let the outside circumstances dictate his inner world.
He must have felt immense anger, right? Anyone would.
Of course. But he made a conscious choice. He didn't let it consume him, destroy him from the inside. Instead, he channeled it
into productive action.
Yeah. Focusing on his legal fight, educating himself, working on himself. It's just a profound example of choosing your response no matter what.
And this ties into that famous Shakespeare line Holiday uses, right?
Nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. The situation itself, prison, a market crash, a project setback, it's neutral until we give it meaning through how we perceive it.
The book also touches briefly on others, like Nelson Mandela, Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Right, people who went through immense hardship but found ways to grow, even thrive sometimes within it.
It shows this isn't some superpower only a few have.
Yeah.
It seems like a fundamental human capacity for resilience if we tap into it.
So can you, the learner, think of a time when you consciously shifted how you looked at a tough situation and it actually changed how it affected you? Maybe something that felt like a total disaster at first, but then...
Led somewhere unexpected, maybe even positive. Yeah, it definitely makes you reflect.
Okay, so once we start getting a handle on how our perceptions work, the next step, logically, is managing those emotional reactions better. The book calls this steady your nerves.
Steady your nerves. I like that.
And it's interesting, this ability to stay cool-headed, it's probably not something you're just born with. It's presented more as a skill, something you build up with practice.
Like Ulysses S. Grant. That's the example used, right?
Yeah. Apparently, he was known for this incredible composure, even when things were literally chaotic around him, like glass shattering nearby during a photo, or obviously in the middle of a battle.
Wow. That image of Grant just steady while everything's falling apart. That really hits home.
It highlights that ability to keep focus, keep composure under intense pressure. And we all face pressure, right? Just in different forms.
For sure. Competition, setbacks, unexpected curveballs, just daily stress.
And connecting this back, the ancient Greeks had a word for this, apatheia.
Apatheia. Okay.
It doesn't mean being emotionless or like suppressing everything. It's more about reaching a state of inner calm, free from those irrational, overwhelming emotions.
So you can actually focus your energy on solving the problem.
Yeah.
Instead of just being consumed by anxiety or anger.
Exactly. And how do we work on this? How do we cultivate this apatheia, this nerve control?
The book suggests some practical things, right?
Yeah, like recognizing our emotions don't have to dictate our actions. We can feel angry, but choose not to lash out.
Okay. And talking to yourself, sort of. Questioning your reaction.
Engaging in that self-dialogue, asking, is this feeling actually helpful right now? Is it based on reality? Consciously questioning those emotional responses.
So the learner, you face pressure daily. We all do. Yeah. What techniques do you use now to steady your nerves?
Yeah.
Are there specific things that tend to throw you off balance?
Really important questions to ask yourself.
Definitely. Now, a really key part of steadying nerves and controlling perception is this idea of practicing objectivity.
Which sounds simple, but it's tricky. It's about seeing things as they are, without all our personal baggage, our biases, our emotional filters coloring everything.
Right. Because our first reaction, that gut instinct, it can mislead us sometimes.
Oh, definitely. Holiday points out, like animals, our first response to a perceived threat might just be fear or aggression, raw instinct.
But we have the ability to pause.
Exactly. It takes mental strength, discipline to hit pause, question that first impulse, and really look at the situation factually, detachedly, before reacting.
And there's that Stoic exercise mentioned, contemptuous expressions. Sounds a bit harsh.
Yeah, the name is a bit much. But the idea isn't really about contempt. It's about looking at something in its most basic, raw form, stripping away the fancy labels or the emotional charge to see it plainly.
To get down to the brass tacks, essentially.
Right, because objectivity, as the book summarizes, gives you that clear, rational understanding. It helps you separate what's actually important from just, emotional noise.
This seems super relevant for you, the learner, wanting to avoid that feeling of overwhelm. How could being more objective help filter all the information coming at you? Help you focus?
Precisely. It's like developing a mental filter, cutting through the subjective stuff to see the core facts, what's really going on here.
Okay, so we've got managing perception, managing emotions. Now, another critical piece, alter your perspective.
This is about realizing there usually isn't just one way to look at a challenge. There are often many angles.
And Viktor Frankl's idea comes in here, doesn't it? That even in the absolute worst situations, we still have a core freedom.
The freedom to choose our attitude, our response. Holiday quotes him, "Every human being has the freedom to change at any instant." That's powerful.
Super powerful. And the historical example of Pericles is great too, calming his sailors during a solar eclipse.
Yeah, they were terrified, thinking it was some, bad omen, the end of the world.
But Pericles just reframed it.
Exactly. He calmly explained the astronomy behind it, the natural phenomenon. And just by shifting their perspective, explaining it differently, he calmed the panic, completely changed their view.
It shows the power of framing, right? How you frame something changes everything.
Absolutely. A problem from one angle looks like a brick wall. But shift your viewpoint, look at it differently. Maybe you see a way around or over, or even realize it's not a wall at all. Maybe it's a stepping stone.
As Holiday puts it bluntly, perspective is everything. So the learner, what's one perspective shift you could make right now about a current challenge that would make it feel more manageable? Could you reframe it, maybe as a learning opportunity or a test of resilience?
Or even just a necessary step towards something bigger you want, that deliberate reframing. It can totally change your emotional state and what you feel capable of doing next.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, building on that control perspective, the book asks this really vital question. Is it up to you?
Yeah, this is huge. It's about putting our energy where it actually counts, on the things we can influence.
And the story of Tommy John the pitcher. That's pretty inspiring.
Totally. Facing what everyone thought was a career-ending injury back then, he goes through this revolutionary surgery.
And comes back to pitch successfully for years.
But it wasn't just the physical part. It was his relentless focus on what he could control. His rehab, his training, his mindset. And apparently, that same determination showed up later when dealing with his son's health issues, too.
It really makes you think of the serenity prayer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That wisdom to know the difference.
Exactly. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Holiday connects it directly to the Stoic principle. Ta femin, da ukefemin.
Which means?
What's up to us versus what's not up to us, what's in our control and what isn't.
And what is in our control, fundamentally?
Our emotions, or rather our response to them, our judgments, our decisions, our attitude, our effort. That's our sphere.
So instead of wasting energy fretting about external stuff we can't change, the weather, other people's actions, the economy.
Turn that attention inward. Focus on your response, how you choose to act. You mentioned wanting to feel more in control, the learner. How could applying this help right now? Where can you shift focus from the uncontrollable outside stuff to the controllable inside stuff, your reactions, your choices, your mindset?
That conscious redirection of energy, it feels foundational.
It absolutely is, for navigating obstacles effectively.
Okay. And that leads right into another crucial aspect of perception, living in the present moment.
Right. Focusing here and now, not getting stuck, regretting the past, or endlessly worrying about the future.
It's interesting, those companies we mentioned earlier, FedEx, Microsoft, Coors, starting in downturns.
Their founders weren't paralyzed by the big picture uncertainty, were they? They were likely focused on the immediate tasks, the present challenges, the needs they could meet right then.
And the book warns about overthinking too, right? That paralysis by analysis.
Oh, yeah. Getting so caught up in analyzing every possible outcome that you never actually do anything. Sometimes the best way forward is just to focus on the very next step, today's task.
So, as Holiday summarizes, to navigate obstacles well, concentrate on the present.
Embrace this moment. Be more mindful, whether that's through actual practices like meditation or just being more fully engaged in what you're doing right now.
So, a practical tip for the learner. What's one small, present-focused action you can take today related to a challenge? Not the whole mountain, just the next step.
That focus on the immediate, the tangible, it can be incredibly grounding. It really cuts down that feeling of being overwhelmed.
Totally agree. Okay, next critical piece of this perception puzzle. Think differently.
This is about actively challenging our own assumptions, our ingrained beliefs about what's possible, breaking free from those self-imposed limits.
And Steve Jobs comes up here. His philosophy.
Yeah, his intense belief in the power of the mind to shape reality. His idea that you could, quote, put into effect what is in your mind. He seemed to see reality as more malleable than most people do.
And his expectations for the original Mac team were legendary, weren't they? Pushing them way beyond what they thought they could do.
Constantly. He apparently rejected fear-based objections. We can't do that. And just cultivated this intense belief in their collective ability to achieve the seemingly impossible.
Holiday quotes Jobs, saying something like, our perceptions determine, to an incredibly large degree, what we are and are not capable of.
Exactly. It highlights that often the biggest walls we hit are the ones inside our own heads, the beliefs we hold about what's possible or impossible for us.
So, the learner, what impossible belief might be holding you back right now? What assumption are you maybe clinging to that, if you questioned it, could open up whole new avenues?
That process of questioning those deep-seated beliefs, it can be really liberating. It can unlock paths you hadn't even considered.
Definitely food for thought. Which leads us nicely to the final part of perception, finding the opportunity.
This is about training ourselves not just to endure challenges, but to actively look for the upside, the potential for growth, learning, even strategic advantage within the difficulty.
Like the Eisenhower example during the Blitzkrieg.
Yeah. What looked like a total disaster for the Allies. Eisenhower apparently pushed his generals to reframe it.
Not just a disaster, but
An opportunity. An opportunity to spot weaknesses in the German strategy, to exploit their overextension.
And that requires that emotional control we talked about, right? You can't see opportunity if you're consumed by panic or despair.
Exactly. By staying somewhat objective, he could see the strategic possibilities others missed in the heat of the moment.
And the book makes this powerful point, that every real challenge holds the potential to push us to a new level, to build resilience, stretch our skills, if we look at it the right way.
Right. Holiday quotes again. The present situation is to be regarded as opportunity for us and not disaster. It's a choice of framing.
So, the learner. Think about a frustrating situation you're dealing with now. Is there a hidden benefit? Could it be forcing you to learn something new, reevaluate priorities, connect with someone unexpected?
That active search for the opportunity within the obstacle, it's an incredibly powerful mindset shift. It turns adversity into fuel.
It really does. And that brings us right to the edge, the bridge between perception and action. Prepare to act.
Yes, because all this mental work, understanding, reframing, controlling emotions, it's crucial, but it has to lead somewhere. It has to translate into doing something.
And the key, as the book stresses, is acting from that place of objective understanding we worked on.
Absolutely. Once you have that clear, rational grasp of the situation, free from the emotional fog, then you're positioned to act decisively, effectively.
Moving beyond just thinking about the problem to actually taking steps. Boldly, maybe, but with a clear head.
Right. Avoiding that paralysis by analysis, acting when the time is right, as Holiday puts it. Once you have a clear understanding, the next step is to act decisively.
Calculated risks? Maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but taken with resolve. Facing the obstacle head on.
Mm-hmm.
So the prompt for you, the learner, what's one small but significant action you can commit to taking today? Something that moves you from thinking to doing, related to a challenge you face.
That first step, no matter how small, often creates momentum. It gets the ball rolling.
Exactly. So wrapping up this deep dive on perception, the first discipline in the obstacle is the way. We've seen how our interpretation is a choice, a powerful one. We've touched on controlling emotions, striving for objectivity, shifting perspective, focusing on what's up to us.
Being present, thinking differently, finding the opportunity, all leading to being prepared to act.
And bringing it back to you, the learner, what's maybe the one insight from all this about perception that feels most relevant, most actionable for you right now?
Yeah, what's one way you typically look at challenges that you might consciously try to shift, even just a little bit starting today?
Because ultimately, as this exploration shows, the obstacles we face, they don't have to be just roadblocks. Right. By working on our perception, we can start to see them as part of the path itself, the way forward, leading to growth, learning, achieving what we want.
So, a final thought to leave you with. Imagine consistently applying just one of these ideas about perception. Maybe consciously choosing objectivity each day, or actively looking for the positive reframe. How might that change your whole experience of challenges over time?
This week, maybe look for moments where you can practice that choice. Can you find an opportunity hidden in something tough? Maybe even practice a little amor fati, that acceptance, maybe even appreciation for what is.
Yeah, see what happens.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into perception. We really hope these insights are helpful as you navigate your own obstacles.
And definitely let us know if there are other topics, other sources you'd find valuable for future deep dives.
Thanks for listening.